Talk about the exact opposite, shall we? Let's talk about a thing that is pretty negative looking, but it went down quite a bit, so it might be an interesting time to take a look. British American Tobacco, which we nearly never talk about, shares went the wrong way earlier this week when they reported earnings. And this is in the context of not so very long ago, another company that we nearly never talk about, which is Philip Morris, actually getting a big boost from their earnings. Philip Morris and British Tobacco are very different companies despite being very similar companies in some ways. So obviously they're both tobacco outfits, both have the similar kind of general vibe of big-ish dividends, declining cigarette volumes, declining combustibles volumes, growing alternative products all over the place. And for Philip Morris, that's really been blazing the trail here. It's been doing very well with its product, which is called Zyn. People appear to be absolutely mad for it, and there is a real sense in which actually, if you look at Zyn, this doesn't necessarily look like a business in terminal decline. It looks like a business in transition, and that transition may look however it looks, but there's genuinely strong growth coming out of Zyn. I haven't looked at their most recent report, but I was hearing talk of sort of 60% volume growth kind of year over year in that part of the business, which is still a minority, but combustibles volume is not zero. And actually, when the areas that Philip Morris sells into, it's in the parts of the world where smoking isn't declining at the same rate as it is in, say, the UK or the US. But British American Tobacco revenues were interesting. They were down 5.2%, but that's because they sold off their Russia and Belarus businesses. And by the way, if anyone from Russia happens to be paying attention to this, when the tobacco company starts selling off their operations in your arm, saying, you know what, we probably can't handle the kind of political heat of this thing, that, to my mind, it really says something when even the cigarette company is saying, nah, we don't do that kind of thing. We'll just sell people cigarettes, that's all. But combustibles revenue was up 0.1%, which is that's the best they're going to get, I think. But new products grew 8.9%, taking them to 17.5% of total revenues. I misunderstood this at first, and I saw that they'd grown by 1% of total revenues and saw that total revenues had fallen by 5.2%. But one of those numbers is adjusted and the other one isn't. So it's not the case that they've just gone up because the other revenue fell away faster. They now get about 3.4 billion in new product revenues, which is something. There's still got a way to go before we start seeing this as a meaningful candidate to replace that dividend. But with the various adjustments built in, earnings per share were £3.62, which was up 3.6%. I think the bit the market didn't like was the fact that they've got a lawsuit coming from Canada, and they've set aside 6.2 billion to deal with that. This is on a market cap of now 68 billion, so it's close to 10% of their current market cap. In cash that they could have been using to buy back shares, and probably would normally have been using to buy back shares, which is now being used to, basically, cover the cost of doing business, I guess, if you're British American Canadian Tobacco. Looking ahead, they're looking at dividending out £2.40 a share, which is 7.7%, and then a 900 million buyback, which gets you another sort of 1.3%. So the return for this year looks kind of good, not great, but it's I think the new products still have some way to go before they start justifying this market cap. There's 68 billion in market cap. That's after it having fallen this week. Another 30.6 billion in net debt. So it takes you close to a sort of 100 billion or so. I can't help but think I'd rather have, they're not the same, Airbnb, because one of these is in pounds and one of these is in dollars. But at that sort of level, it makes it hard for me to think I wouldn't rather have Airbnb here. But the story here is supposed to be one of growth in new products, but I'm not sure I see new products being quite big enough just yet. And I realise that combustibles haven't gone away. They're treading water at the moment, and every year that you take 8-9% out of this business reduces the target that your growing thing has to hit. But the main thing that stood out for me from this, Steve, is just how far there is to go until new products does a meaningful job of replacing this thing.
Yeah, it's not there. There is a lot of talk in building a smokeless world. Is what is their new heading, becoming a predominantly smokeless business by 2035. It looks like their smokeless products is about 17.5% of revenue at the moment, which is better than I expected. But it's yeah, it's not. It's I mean, their chief executive is called Tado Morocco, and he 100% smokes. You can just hear it in his name, can't you? You can hear the smoke in his name. I actually went to Google, does he smoke? And I started typing in his name. When I got to the R of it, Google automatically changed it to, does Tado Morocco smoke? It's like, this must be like the hot question on investors' lips at the moment. But yeah, you know what? See, this is an okay report. I think it's tricky, like you say, that when a sin stock is dropping a couple of countries, a cancer causing sin stock is saying I can't deal in these two countries. It's kind of it's kind of rough, isn't it? But they've got headwinds everywhere, Steve, and it's all right them shoveling cigarettes into developing markets and saying, like to the people of Bangladesh, here's a load of cigarettes, you should smoke them. Everyone thinks they're cool. Eventually, the governments in those countries, like they have done in Bangladesh, get wind of this and start charging higher excise and higher VAT, and then the health regulations come in to stop this being a thing. It's a cycle that British American Tobacco have been down and have been able to hold off by having massive amounts of lobbying in the Western world. But I'm afraid the developing world, it just won't happen like that because it's already an accepted norm everywhere else. This will get pushed through a lot faster. So they better get to smokeless world by 2035, especially in their product lineup, because I just don't think smoking is something people will accept for more than a decade or so, Steve.
Just to quickly, because what you said there reminded me of something that I saw on X. I spent too much time on X this week. The boss of cigarette giant British American Tobacco, according to a journo from what appears to be a newspaper, said that he does not smoke or vape and doesn't like it. The boss of cigarette giant British American Tobacco says he does not smoke or vape. Tado Morocco, chief executive of the 68 billion, which is about what it is now, so this is quite a recent firm, for the past 2 years, told The Sun, I tried to smoke in the past, didn't like it, not a drinker either, so maybe that makes me quite boring. Which is, yeah. It's
just
an interesting
crack
kind of
cocaine
look, isn't it?
for me, please.
Yeah, it tells you everything you need to know about British tobacco, I think. You've been watching a segment from the Playing FTSE show, brought to you in association with our favourite broker, Trading 212. For the full version of the show, check us out on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you open a new account with Trading 212 using the link in the description, there's a free fractional share in it for you. Just make sure that you use the code FTSE when you sign up. Terms and conditions apply, and do remember that when investing, your capital is at risk.